Maple Leaf Gardens is 65 years old, and time may be running out on one of Canada's most famous buildings, but there's still plenty of time, and now's the ideal time to celebrate its history and enjoy its atmosphere.
A 2-on-1 developing for Toronto. Sundin shoots one, he scores!
That's hockey.
With Dave Hodge.
Welcome. It's not quite 65 years after the official opening on November the 12th, 1931, and it won't be the Chicago Blackhawks providing the opposition as they did then. But tomorrow night, the 65th anniversary of Maple Leaf Gardens will be celebrated at a game between Toronto and the Detroit Red Wings. The Leafs will wear uniforms that resemble those worn by the team that opened the Gardens. And in attendance will be a few who remember the Gardens from day one, and surely some who will be witnessing the building from the inside for the first time, and thousands of others who fit somewhere in between. The Leafs are actively seeking a new site and have commissioned a new design and plan for the next Gardens, and they have indicated they'll try to recapture as much of the first one, the current one, as possible, and that's admirable. But the way to appreciate Maple Leaf Gardens is not to wait for the new one. It is to remember and continue to experience the one that soon turns 65. Here's more from TSN's Teresa Cruz.
And half at Maple Leaf Gardens stock.
Stanley Cup.
Hello, Canada and hockey fans of the United States and Newfoundland, and an extra big hello to Canadian servicemen overseas.
Even with the world at war, the Leafs continue to be the hot ticket in Toronto. A night at the Gardens was dressed up for a night of hockey. Conn Smythe sat in his own box on the west side of the Gardens and had his own telephone hooked up to the bench so he could give instructions to Coach Hap Day.
And when Hap would unplug the thing, so Smythe couldn't get through to tell him what he was doing wrongly or what he should be doing rightly.
As Foster Hewitt broadcast the games from his gondola high above the ice, the rest of the media watched from the original press box, which was the first two rows of the greens on the east side. There was even a bull ring at the Gardens, an area where you could bet on the game.
So there was a token of disaster in this betting ring, and Smythe finally barred it from the Gardens completely.
The Gardens even had its own bowling alley on the third floor of the west side. Today it's a storage area, but if you look hard, you can still see the sign that marked Lane 3. And what an innovation the escalators were when they were put in the 50s. It took them 7 months just to get them installed.
And Con never let us forget that. I built the building quicker than you got the escalators. And, that's the kind of guy he was.
But the proudest moments always involved the Toronto Maple Leafs. In 1946, a young rookie by the name of Howie Meeker came into the Gardens to play on a team that would go on to win 3 straight cups.
I walked in the front door and I turned right, and there were 2 great big swinging doors at ice level, and I want to go through there, and there's a giant standing there, and he saw me coming. He looked at me and he says, "That way." So up about 200 stairs and walked into the top of the Blues, and I was just astounded. My first thoughts were, holy jumping. I said, you could put 3 barns down there and pile them 3 high. What a building, what a size. Big, 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 big.
These were the great hockey days in Maple Leaf Gardens. But the building has hosted its share of other events over the years too, such as boxing matches, ice shows, operas, circuses, and rock concerts. The only event they wish they'd never had at the Gardens was a rodeo. Trying to clean up afterwards left Garden staff scrambling to get the ice ready for the next Leafs game.
The best they could do was a nice surface that was chocolate colored from the, from the remains of Rodeo.
So we postponed the game for an hour. I think that was the biggest concessions we ever had. So everything didn't work out too badly.
In the early 60s, under the guidance of Punch Imlach, the Stanley Cup became a regular visitor at Maple Leaf Gardens.
We added Keon, and we added Mahavlich, and we added Bobby Nevin, and we had Bobby Pulford, and then we got Bauer, and we got Kelly, and we got Olmstead, and said, okay, now we're going to come back and do business with you guys. We're going to do serious business with you guys. And then that team won 3 cups.
Then came the win in 1967. It was a team laced with aging veterans, but they, along with a few young players like Ron Ellis, once again brought the Stanley Cup back to Maple Leaf Gardens.
To see the Stanley Cup come out and have all the guys around me, and it was just a special event. I enjoyed it the whole summer, shared it with friends and family. But then training camp came around again. We had to get back to business.
Much to the dismay of the Leaf faithful, 1967 was the last year that the Cup was paraded through Toronto. Under Harold Ballard, the 70s and 80s proved to be frustrating for hockey fans.
It was a very sad time, in my opinion, for not only hockey in Toronto, but Maple Leaf Gardens. And seeing a franchise that you were so proud of to be a part of, torn apart, and really struggle for the next 20 years.
But now a new ownership group, new hopes for the future, and a whole new generation of hockey fans are packing the Gardens.
They say that all good things have to come to an end, and unfortunately it looks like the Leafs' days of playing here at the Gardens are numbered. It's the days of bigger buildings and luxury boxes, and the Leafs have already begun plans to build a new arena. So it looks like the grand old lady is about to be retired. But the memories will always remain, and you know, no matter where the Leafs go to play, their history will be forever linked with this building, Maple Leaf Gardens. I'm Teresa Cruz. That's hockey.
That's Hockey with Dave Hodge. Brought to you by MasterCard, the official card and payment system of the NHL.